Hello, and welcome to She Leads Biotech, the podcast that celebrates the achievements of women in the bioscience space. I'm your host, Sharron Cox, CEO and Managing Director of CNA International, a boutique search firm based in New York. Each week, I have the privilege of learning from incredible leaders as they share their stories. Together, we celebrate their triumphs, explore their challenges, and uncover their vision for the future of bioscience. Our conversations also provide invaluable insights into how women can unlock their unique superpowers and succeed on their own terms. So, whether you're just starting your journey in bioscience, contemplating your next career move, or simply passionate about science and innovation, this podcast is here to empower, inspire, and guide you. My guest today is a physician, scientist, and industry expert who came with her husband to the US from India, knowing nobody, and over the last 20 years has made a profound impact in advanced therapies, including cell and gene therapy. Our conversation dives deep into the essence of leadership, emphasizing that it's not about titles or designations, it's about impact, inspiration, and purpose. We talk about the importance of mentorship for women in science, the challenges of perfectionism, and the value of persistence, networking, and embracing vulnerability. She also offers invaluable advice for the next generation entering the biotech field and provides her vision for the promising future of advanced therapies. Lots to dive into today. So please welcome Sapna Tandon. Sapna, hello.
Hi, Sharon.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me be a guest on your podcast.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. And you're talking to me from over on the West Coast, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm based in San Francisco, West.
And what's the weather like there at the moment?
Well, it's gloomy, it's rainy, so I'm looking for some sunshine.
Yeah, it's. I'm sure wherever it is, it's better than here in New York because it's a little bit freezing. I was up in upstate New York recently, and there was snow there. It was like, goodness me. Yeah. Favorite British pastime. We just talk about the weather, so we'll get that out of the way, and then we can move on. So,
I know.
Well, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time out to talk to me today. I was first made aware of you because of your expertise in cell and gene therapy and the work that you do in that. So, but what I wanted to understand is your journey from a physician, scientist, through to biotech industry expert. What was that journey like? Can you talk me through that?
Sure. Once again, thank you for allowing me to share my story. Now that you made me think, actually, this year marks my 20th year in United States as a first generation immigration. So it's quite a journey that I had not planned. It just happened and I embraced it. But nevertheless, I was the first generation immigrant. And before moving to US, I was born and raised in India. I did my medicine back in India. I was specializing in HIV and immunology. I got married. My husband decided to move to US and I followed his path. One thing led to another. I joined academia. I did my education at George Washington University. And then I happened to work at Memorial Sloan Kettering with Dr. Jim Allison and Dr. Walchuk. And that was kind of a pivot in my life where I shifted suddenly from being a physician to a scientist. And that was my first exposure to T cells. I learned a lot in those 4 years there. And then I took a sabbatical. My daughter was born. And then when I decided to go back to workforce, cell and gene therapy was kind of upcoming. It was 2017. The first Kymriah was approved. And I joined a startup called Cell Design Lab, which eventually became Kite/Gilead. And that was my transition from academia to biotech. And that's how it all began.
Okay. So you went from bedside to bench. Would that be? Yep,
Yes,
you did that.
yes, I did that.
And whilst you were a scientist, what sort of things were you working on?
So I was working as an R&D scientist. So during my time academia, I was involved in immune monitoring of clinical trials,
Okay.
especially the checkpoint inhibitor. And in 2011, Yervoy, the first anti-CTLA, was approved, and it was instrumental by Dr. Jim Allison, and I was part of his lab. That experience was more on clinical trial monitoring, and with Kite, I was more involved in cell therapy, early discovery and research, and optimizing those car assets before they go into manufacturing.
Okay. And what was it like, your early career here in the US, coming from your home in India and settling in the US? How was that career start for you?
Um, it was a roller coaster, I would say, a roller coaster filled with thrill and excitement, and certainly nerve-wracking at times as well, because this was the first time I ever traveled abroad. So I had no family, I had no friends. So everything was trial and test, and with what will work, what will not. But one thing stood out was that I met several great people who helped me along this journey. Some in capacity of mentors, some in capacity of my managers, and some in the capacity of colleagues and co-workers. And that helped me navigate all the challenges and helped me become what I am today. And the other thing that stood out to me was, despite the perception people say that, oh, you come from a different background, out of your skin, there's a common thread about humanity that is common between India and, my time in US.
Okay.
And those experiences are valuable, And it told me, and I have seen other people make that journey, moving from a foreign country and thriving in US. And now I know why, because,
Mm.
people are so inclusive and they
I mean,
appreciate.
yeah, I mean, that happened to me. I was brought up in the UK, worked in the UK, but always had a dream to come to New York.
Mhm.
Admittedly, it was I wanted to be a Broadway star and stuff like that, but that's
Oh.
another story. And at 55, I decided to pack up. My daughter had grown up, and so I left the UK. I left my friends, left my family, came to New York. And genuinely, I didn't know anybody, didn't have any clients, didn't have any contacts, didn't have any friends. And really, I found everybody was so accommodating. In the town that I live in, yeah, I very quickly built a community of people, and everybody was so willing, to be part of the journey with me, which I think people don't often think about that. They always think about the scary side of it, of going from one country and one culture to another. But it can be a very inspiring experience, right?
Yes, so you can relate to what I'm saying, right?
Mm,
Coming from nothing with 5 suitcases to building a life, you just can't do it alone, for sure.
yeah. But and so how long have you been here now?
It's been 20 years now.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you got me beat. I've only done 8. So,
Will you get there?
oh, I got, well, I don't know. I don't know when I'll get to 20. So you came from so you did the academia. You then went into the biospace. What was the next stage of your journey? How did the next few years progress?
So as I transitioned into industry, I started learning more. And something that have always driven me is my passion for knowing more.
Yeah.
I want to explore. I want to keep growing, and that pursuit of keep growing kind of pivoted me to move from R&D to GMP when I joined an organization. Was working in GMP site, building a cell and gene therapy manufacturing platform,
Yeah.
and from there I made another shift about knowing how to develop a product in cell and gene therapy. And in between that time, I also was also learning as how the field is, right, where the field is going. And that shift and learning kind of portrayed me as, the subject matter expert. A lot of learning and real life experiences, and it kind of built into that whole product life cycle. So I started with clinics, knowing the patient, what it takes, from a patient perspective, and then discovering a new drug which is so life-saving, such as cell therapy, and then understanding that there are still barriers. It's not sufficient to just have a drug product. There are barriers to a patient access around the manufacturing, the high cost. And so now I have the full 360 global view of, understanding that it's not sufficient to just have a product, but how do you make it accessible? And that was through manufacturing.
Right. So I might be putting you on the spot here, but I hear so many people talk about cost and the cost of bringing down drugs, but there's the cost of the trials and there's cost of everything else. What's your view on AI and its involvement in the biospace, particularly in advanced therapies such as cell and gene therapy?
It's so interesting. I was having this conversation with a colleague on a similar phase, because AI is certainly a very disruptive technology. But instead of shying away, we'll all embrace it. And it has its advantages, right? Especially when it comes to leveraging the technological advancement. A big barrier to these cell therapies that developing nations can't access them because of the cost. And sometimes the clinical trial design is such a way that it excludes certain minorities, right? So how do you design a clinical trial that is much more inclusive and it's more real world? So I think AI touches on all these respects, integration into the manufacturing platform as well, right? Can you do real-time monitoring and call out the product efficacy so that if the manufacturing is not as far as what you anticipated, you can quickly go back and change it, and not to have wait for the full 10-14 days for the product to be released, right? So early discovery, clinical trial design, even the manufacturing platforms can all benefit from AI. And so many companies are doing that.
Right.
Yeah, because ultimately, think of it, it's the human brain that designed the AI, right? So we have to give credit. You just have to be careful and respectful of the boundaries of technologies as well, right? As long as we balance that and be respectful that there are limitations to technology and how it's being used. If it's used in the right context, it's an advantage. But if it falls in wrong hand, it's like a devil's tool. Right? Yeah, it's a devil's tool. So finding that sweet spot. And I think several of the AI experts are delving into that.
Okay. And actually, this whole field of gene and cell therapy was once upon a time movies were made of they were never going to be something that's happening, but they really are. What can you school me in within that space that is just going to be life-changing for people in the next kind of decade?
I mean, it's true. Like, when I was in grad school, the first genome data came out, right? An entire human genome was mapped out, and nobody thought that was ever possible, right? So even with the cell therapy, even when I was working with them, I would sometimes reckon with that, is it really possible, right? Till you see a patient in remission.
Yeah.
It's very hard to imagine. And these stories come alive when you meet a person, right?
Yep.
So if we were to fast track and say 5 years down the lane, we would have several of those remission stories, whether it's sickle cell, whether it's hematological malignancy, and possibly solid tumors, right? So I can't predict the future, but I think definitely we will have several of these stories and these medications becoming mainstream and at the same time mean more affordable. So you'll have not only success stories in developed world, but in developing nations as well.
Excellent. Well, that's something for us all to look forward to. I mean, I've noticed, just through talking to different companies and people within the companies, it's almost that there's a role. People are kind of it's gathering momentum, and is barraging forward and can only lead to great things, I think, in the future. So
certainly, I mean, it's a really hopeful for all those patients, to have an option, that wasn't imaginable few years.
Yeah. Incredible,
back, right?
incredible. And thanks to people like you. So, who are doing all the work and all the hard work to make those dreams a reality. So
Thank
kudos
you. I'm a
to all
very
you and your
small
colleagues.
piece. Yeah, I think there's so many thought leaders and scientists and physicians who have made this possible. So I would give the credit to them. I'm just doing my small part.
Or every small part adds up to something else. So, and
Thank you.
another small part that you play, but I think is bigger than that, is in the mentorship of other women. You're very much an advocate for women. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so I think it all stemmed from the fact that you have to give back in whatever capacity that. And some of the learnings that I had initially as I'm transitioned in various roles throughout academia and industries, that you can be an individual contributor, but to really thrive, you have to have a support system. And
Mm,
how do you create a support system in a working organization that is a safe place to talk, and which has led me to be part of several women's group in the organization I have worked, especially Gilead slash Kite, and even in my current organization, and through some nonprofit and cell and gene therapy communities like Facilitate, where they have these initiatives of creating those mentorship. So I have tried to nurture those relationship and trying to equip them with tools and techniques that help them not only survive but thrive in the organization. And like for example, I met this young girl through Facilitate networking mentorship event, and we were supposed to meet once in a month, but that relationship will evolve into she being my little sister, right? So she has moved to her home country, but we're still connected through WhatsApp, and we share pictures, and and she now comes back and tells me, thank you for your advice. I'm embracing the change. I'm enjoying my time with my family while she make the career transition. These are the small efforts, I think, that I wish I could have had more when I was navigating some of those uh, career changes and roles. And they did happen, but I wish I was a little bit more proactive in seeking them.
mm.
And I wish somebody would have told me sooner. So it's that thought process that has led me that can I engage more young women into this, ask and seek, and you will get the help, so that they can thrive and become the best version of themselves and do
Yep.
great things that they are meant to be.
And is it or could it be that younger generations of people coming through would ask for support, would ask for help, but actually don't know what help it is they need?
Yeah, I think a lot of that is also the challenge of the pandemic, where everybody got separated, right?
Yep.
So there is this challenge of, first, I don't know what I don't know, right? I
Yep.
don't know where to seek, and then this whole self doubt that happens, right? Will the person respond? Will the person not respond? Should I ask? Should I not ask?
Yep.
Some of those internal conflicts are the barriers that people don't reach out, young generation, and they're trying to figure it all, alone,
Yep.
and it's difficult. So that's why some of the organizations that I mentioned, and there are other women focused groups
Yep.
that have tried to create an environment so that you can seek the help and get the guidance that would help them.
And for you as a mentor, is there a reoccurring theme or reoccurring topic that women in particular struggle with, or is it very general?
So no, I guess there are two or three recurrent topics that women, especially, I would say, cursed with, is like, self-doubt. This thought of being the perfectionist that they are always, and trying to have it all right in that one. So at one moment we try to become the doting wife, mother, daughter, co-worker, and then all the titles, VP, CEO. So you can you have it all is the question all the time. So that's what I always deal. And then the stress of change, making the change, the transition, and where to find that support, and that imposter syndrome, that I'm never good enough. I
Yep.
think that is huge among women. So some of the ways that I have tried to help is that, we have to be a little bit more vulnerable, and it's okay to say that you're not okay, you
Yep.
know.
That's
So
tough, isn't it? Particularly for women.
it's very tough.
We just feel that we always have to be like, oh, I'm fine, I'm okay, I'm just going to carry on. But it's
Yeah.
not reality.
No. So my approach has always been, and I think some of the work that I've done on myself in these past years is through my meditation, philosophical reading, following the leaders within the organization, some that I have looked up to, and say, this time for everything, right? So it's okay to be okay for some time, and they will come back, right?
Yep.
It's just you will have to have enough resilience to bounce back. And to get that resilience, use every tools and techniques that is available to you. If it means taking a mile walk, do that. If it's me, connecting with like-minded women, do that. If
Yep.
it just means, being yourself and reading a book, do that. But you will get there. Just have hope.
And do what's best for you, I think is,
Exactly.
yeah. And I think there's also realize that, look, you can't have it all. As much as we want to, you're not going to have it all. And whatever our parents taught us to say you can have it all is like, no, you were probably on the Prozac while you were telling us we could have it all, but you can't. Um, but it's knowing what to sacrifice and what you're comfortable with sacrificing, and coming to terms with that, almost to say, I'm not going to be able to do that. I really want to, but I'm not going to be able to, but I'm going to come to terms with how that's going to play out. And that's my choice, and I'm going to make that choice. I'm going to do what I need to do as a result of that. Is that a message that you're hearing?
Absolutely. I mean, and I think what has happened with technology again is, even a forum like you, the podcast, I think if you hear that, you hear from women who are leaders in their field, and you realize that everybody goes through a rough patch once
Yep.
in a while, right? So it's these real stories that bring that that thinking, okay, if it's happening to her, it's happening to me, it's okay.
Yeah.
So you find the best route that fits your needs, your prioritization. If it means taking a sabbatical like I did for 5 years while my daughter was going to school, and luckily I was able to go and do full-time work, so be it, right?
Yep.
Not to judge, and no peer pressure. I think the peer pressure sometimes gets to us. I wish I would have done that.
Yes.
Should have, done it.
Or have other people make you feel as if you should have done that or shouldn't have done that. And I think it's quite sad that that's something that does still happen a lot. Um,
Yes.
in that, you can't win. If you're not at the school gates to pick up your child because you're working, then you're a bad mother because you're working. If you are at the school gates, then why are you not working and contribute? It's,
Yes.
you really can't win. And I think that's where it comes back to, I'm going to do what works for me.
Yes.
And I'm not going to be made to feel bad about the choices that I make. And I think that that is something that is a constant battle for women. I know certainly for myself was always, am I doing the right thing doing this? And should I do this? And should I let the peer pressure get to me? But it's, I think the more that women, the earliest age that they can learn and understand that it's their journey and it's about them, the easier it's going to be for future generations.
I absolutely agree, and I'm trying to do something of that sort with my daughter as well. It's like a
Yep.
muscle training. You have to keep juggling it every day till you become have enough strength in your, muscles to withstand that, right?
Okay. So what's in your future? What are you able to talk about what you're working on at the moment, or what your plans are for the future?
I have learned to take one day at a time, honestly, and be grateful for the day that I have. And where I am right now with my current organization, ThermoFisher, I am very happy to be a part of that team and to contribute to the success and mission of the organization. So I'm at a very happy place, and I hope to continue to do what I am doing is to enable the scientists, the physicians, and developers who are making these life saving therapies, make it more accessible to more patients and whatever it takes. And my hope is that, we have more of these success stories that we can chart about.
Yeah, just keep those success stories going.
Yeah.
I see that happens regularly when they have, advanced therapies weeks and the whole kind of community gets together and the energy in the room or the venue is off the charts. So there's a lot of energy that's going into the future of these therapies, right?
Yeah, and you will see, you mentioned Advanced Therapy Weeks, you will see the women powerhouse that is that are leading some of the initiatives there, even within that field, right? So I think the future is bright, both for women in the industries, for our young generation, where STEM is no longer, a thing of future, it's accessible. We have so many bright scientists to look up to, physicians. So I think there's signs of optimism to be, hopeful about the future.
Excellent. And also that it's a promising career for women. For
Absolutely.
women to see that, wow, yeah, I could do this. And not think it's like, that one's maybe for the boys because it's not something that women would do. But that's
Yes.
absolutely not true, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have had several of those guests in your podcast itself that I have showed to my daughter. I'm trying to inspire her that sky is the limit.
Yep.
You just have to put your mind to where you want to be and you get there, right? The sky is the limit. And I think some of the initiatives that we mentioned and even a platform like these podcasts are source of inspiration that is achievable, it's doable. And even if there are barriers, we have a community to break those barriers, right? You can
Yep.
talk about it and you can overcome the challenge because several other peoples have done and have been in that shoes and that path.
Yeah, absolutely. Which actually brings me to my last question. I so appreciate the time you've taken out. I know that you're in the middle over there on the West Coast, you're in the middle of a very busy day. So I really do appreciate it. But before I let you go, what's some advice that you would give to, and you probably already do it as part of your mentorship programs, but younger generation, tomorrow's leaders coming through, not too sure what's going on. It's been a challenging time over the last couple of years in the space. So people may well be thinking, is this a good field to go in? And is it all too unsettling? What would your advice be to young women entering that?
So I would suggest, be open-minded, don't shy to reach out to folks, have an understanding, what your job looks like, what's your role look like, and be open-minded and use your strength in whatever life throws you at next. And I say that from my example that even though I'm not practicing in US, the patient perspective are the lessons that I carry, and they're still relevant whether I'm discovering a drug or I am marketing initiative. I understand the pain of the patient and it helps me bridge that gap. Yep. So know your strength, talk to people, understand what their role is so that you have a clear understanding of where you want to be, and then use any tools and means to get there. Don't be afraid to hear no. There will be several no's, but it's the yes that counts. And there will be multiple yes if you take the initiative of knocking that door.
Yeah. You've got to knock on the doors to have somebody answer to get the answer.
Yeah,
but
and don't be
yes
discouraged.
Or no, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, and don't just be persistent. I think persistent and perseverance go hand in hand, Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Well, very, very, very good advice. Sapna, as I say, I really am grateful for the time that you've spent with us. I look forward to continuing to follow your career and the success that you're having. I'd love to hear more stories about the mentorships and things that you're doing and the stories of people that you talk to, and wish you every success for the future.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for giving me the platform and the opportunity to share my story. I will look forward hearing to several of your future guests to
Yes,
inspire my daughter. Thank you so
abs-
much.
absolutely. That wraps up today's episode of She Leads Biotech. I hope you enjoyed this conversation and found inspiration in the stories shared. Remember, the success of every woman can inspire another, so don't hesitate to share yours. She Leads Biotech is brought to you by CNA International USA, a woman-owned boutique search firm specializing in sourcing talent for small and emerging bioscience companies across the US, from our headquarters in New York. For more information about our services, feel free to reach out at contact@cnaint.com. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And until next time, stay bold, stay brilliant, and continue pioneering progress for women in bioscience.